Welcome to the CE Pro podcast. I'm Executive Editor Arlen Schweiger. You know, the networking category is certainly an area of constant change that generates lots of questions. For example, what does Wi-Fi 6 mean for custom installers? How will 5G cellular affect the deployment of home networks? Did the Snap One acquisition of Access Networks affect Access Networks' long-standing relationship with Ruckus, which supplies the company's enterprise-grade networking gear? Lastly, how about the spike in home networking? Will deployments continue post-pandemic at the same rate they're doing today? CE Pro editor Jason Knott sat down with CommScope's Bart Giordano, Senior Vice President of Global Sales for Ruckus, to get answers to these questions and more. As always, be sure to subscribe to CE Pro's YouTube channel and hit that like button on our videos, or subscribe to the CE Pro podcast on Apple and Spotify and leave a review.
Hi, Jason Knott with CE Pro, and I am excited to be joined today by Bart Giordano, Senior VP at Ruckus Global Sales at CommScope. Hi, Bart.
Hi, Jason. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. You know, there's a lot that's been happening in the networking category. You know, during the pandemic, we saw at the professional installation level for CE Pros a 200% increase in home network deployments. So this has become such a key category. We know it's the engine that drives the smart home, and obviously Ruckus is one of the integral players in that. So I'm glad you're here today to talk to me about a little bit what's going on with Ruckus and what integrators can expect from the company.
Yeah, me too. It's an exciting time for the industry, certainly.
Yeah. So tell us, just to kick off, tell us a little bit of the history of CommScope and Ruckus.
You bet. Well, Ruckus is a networking business that's been around 15 years, and through a series of acquisitions ended up at CommScope. CommScope has a little bit longer history in the connectivity infrastructure space, going back almost 40 years, and it's a leader in their industry. And the combination of the two companies is really exciting because, you know, one of the few businesses in the world that brings everything you need from the physical infrastructure in a campus or venue network all the way out to the wired and wireless, both licensed and unlicensed spectrum technology. So the combination is very unique in the industry, and I think particularly for the custom home AV space, we have a lot to offer.
Yeah. So I mentioned this dramatic increase that happened during the pandemic at the home networking space. Where do you foresee the category going? Is it peaked out there, or do you just consider this the tip of the iceberg and people have now realized they have to have, enterprise grade networks in their homes?
Yeah, I think one of the things we realized in the era of distance learning and remote work is we took for granted a little bit in the home that good enough Wi-Fi could cut it. And suddenly, we're faced with these new use cases around concurrent video streams coupled with, trends that were already happening in the space towards a lot more devices, connecting not only user devices, but a lot of things on the network that was straining capacity. And now we layered on these new use cases around bulk data transfer and concurrent real-time voice and video that I think really exposed a lot of networks and showed us all that there is room for what we like to term enterprise home networking in the space. So I don't think it's peaked out by any means. Certainly, whether it's remote work or flexible work, I think the fact that people are going to be having these type of experiences on their home network is going to persist. I'd like to think that children are going to get back into the classrooms full time next year, but we don't know, right? And I think there may be flexible learning opportunities that persist as well. So there is going to continue to be, I think, a strong demand for these types of solutions in the home, and we're really excited about the opportunity that it brings.
Yeah, an integrator was telling me the other day that, he can't imagine after we've done a year and a half of having these video calls that people are going to be satisfied going back to just plain old phone calls anymore.
Right. I don't know. I think many different companies had different cultures. I know our company did not have a strong culture of video conferencing for most meetings prior to this. And now you take it for granted. I mean, every meeting is automatically scheduled with video. You have, some folks that may come back to the office and be there live. I know in the case of the team that I manage, none of us even live in the same time zone, right? So connecting real time via video is the way we meet as a team and do business. So I think you're right. I think there's been a cultural change in a lot of businesses and a lot of institutions where video is now the norm, and obviously that has implications on how you think about designing for capacity and reliability in your network, because you're trying to replicate the richness of a live experience through this medium, and the resiliency and reliability of your network really indicates whether or not you can accomplish something that approximates a live experience.
So I wanted to ask you about some big news that happened in the custom installation space a while back, and that was the acquisition of Access Networks by SnapAV. And obviously, Access Networks has been a longtime partner of Ruckus. Did that acquisition, do you see that changing the relationship in any way or affecting it?
Well, it's really exciting. We've enjoyed a long time partnership with Access Networks. It's a very unique partnership. Ruckus, as a networking business, broadly serves the enterprise, and the relationship with Access Networks allowed us to bring uniquely differentiated technology into the custom home AV environment. So that's been a big benefit for us. And to the extent that it changes the relationship, I think it only expands it, right? Certainly with SnapAV, they saw a lot of value in what we did with Access, and they bring a much broader reach into the market. So we couldn't be more excited about bringing Ruckus and with the Access brand to what is really a global network of dealers that go and serve this market. And it's very positive from our perspective.
One of the big advancements that's happened in the networking space recently has been Wi-Fi 6. Tell us what you think the effect of Wi-Fi 6 is going to be on the smart home market in terms of broadening the number of devices or the speed, or what's it ultimately going to do to help integrators out there?
You bet. I think, I'll date myself a little bit here, but I go back to the days of Wi-Fi 11B, right? And with each subsequent technology transition in the Wi-Fi space, there was really a focus on more speed, right? More bandwidth. That was the primary impetus from moving from 11B to 11N and 11AC and 11AC Wave 2. We've matured as an industry, certainly, right? And we've got away from these esoteric sort of standard names, and I think we've got something more sane now with Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6 and so forth. But Wi-Fi 6 is almost a watershed moment in the industry, where instead of being exclusively focused on more speeds and feeds, in the case of Wi-Fi 6, there's big advantages in terms of capacity, right? And the efficient use of spectrum to enable more capacity in our Wi-Fi networks and more density. And if you think about the market trends and forces that we just described, right, it couldn't come at a better time. More devices coming on the network, more taxing applications running over those devices. So the big benefit for home users with Wi-Fi 6 is you're going to have more capacity for the same number of network nodes. You'll be able to add more devices confidently to your network, whether those are user devices, either traditional computing devices or mobile devices doing voice and video and streaming applications, or a whole new range of IoT devices. I know in our home, as we obviously all of the users in our home have their own suite of devices. It's gone from maybe 2 or 3 a few years ago to, with the advent of wearables and things, a individual user may have 4, 5, 6 different Wi-Fi devices that come on the network. And now with the trends in IoT, literally dozens of sensors and other types of IoT products that are coming on the network. So more capacity, more reliability and performance for the same number of network elements is really the benefit that Wi-Fi 6 will bring.
So one of the difficulties in the custom installation space is that integrators will sometimes glaze over the eyes of their customers by talking at a tech level about whatever the technology is that they're bringing to bear. How should they communicate the benefits of Wi-Fi 6 in a simple, effective manner to their customers?
Well, I think we can all draw on the personal experiences we've had over the last year. As I think about my own experience, I went from the occasional streaming movie, the occasional phone call that I would take when home for work. My children certainly never did any remote learning from home, to suddenly 4 or 5 concurrent Zoom video calls that really stressed the network. More devices coming into the network. The schools were sending devices home with the children, right, to facilitate distance learning. And given that, I think we can all relate to the challenges that placed on many networks. And so, as a dealer is out talking about the benefits and value of making this technology transition to Wi-Fi 6 and upgrading the capability and capacity of the home network with enterprise grade solutions, I think the best way to do it is to just talk about the improvement in the user experience, particularly at those times when you have concurrent use of the network for those applications that we find demanding. But in order to be productive at work or to be effective in distance learning, you must have. And that's how we think about delivering value to our customers. It's through the experience that the quality of the network will elicit.
So one last area I wanted to touch on is regarding 5G. So we hear this from the cellular companies that, and we see devices at CES, for example, that are security cameras, for example, that are bypassing the network and using just cellular communication. And you hear this argument about obsolescence all the time in the industry, whether it's wireless versus hardwired, and in this case, 5G in the network. Is 5G, let's kind of talk about some of these myths that might be out there, that 5G is not going to make the home network some sort of obsolete antique device or an unnecessary item in the home. What is going to be the future of the home network as 5G becomes on board?
Yeah, I always laugh at those predictions, right? I think people that make those predictions perhaps misunderstand the differences in the technologies. Fundamentally, and it's in the name, Wi-Fi is a wireless LAN solution, right, for local area networking. Whereas we think of cellular technologies today as primarily enabling WAN connectivity, right, over the wide area network. And if you view it through that lens, right, you can see that there's use cases and applications for both technologies, right? It's unlikely today that a lot of the Wi-Fi use cases in your house, whether that be streaming content locally or other, peer-to-peer connectivity in the home, are going to be supplanted by 5G. However, as you pointed out, enabling some of these devices with cellular connectivity gives you additional flexibility in case you need to deploy those where you do not have Wi-Fi coverage somewhere on a property or in a remote area, or for providing broadband connectivity where traditional fixed wireless broadband is not available, right? I think one of the things that the events of the last year exposed is the fact that the broadband connectivity that you and I and many others take for granted is not broadly available to everybody in rural areas or even in some urban areas across the U.S. And applying cellular broadband technology to what we call this fixed wireless access use case can really benefit home users. So our thought is that these are two fantastic technologies that will continue to persist and grow long into the future. And when applied toward those use cases that are best served by each technology, you can bring a lot of benefits to the home user. But at the end of the day, Wi-Fi is ubiquitous. It is pervasive. It is on nearly every electronic device that you buy today. And the attach rates are much higher than what you see with cellular connectivity. And we don't expect that to change anytime soon. So The predictions around the demise of Wi-Fi are certainly overstated at best, and we see valuable use cases for both 5G and Wi-Fi in the home into the future.
All right, some good points there. Great information. Bart Giordano of Ruckus, thanks for joining us today.
You bet, Jason. Thanks so much for your time.